Hey, what's up guys? Gonz here for the Face Like the Sun YouTube channel, working on part 2 of the Spiritual Dimensions series, but for now, I wanted to talk about Lady Gaga X Intel Grammy Awards 2016, House of Gaga. It's a commercial that's been airing all over the place, and there's been a lot of people talking about Gaga and her connection to the Illuminati and all this stuff. But I wanted to do a quick breakdown of this commercial because there's definitely symbolism going on here in this promotional video, and I think it's telling of what the elite are trying to do and what they represent. So first off, the commercial starts off here. She's inside of what looks like a Tesseract hypercube, and it's clearly showing different dimensionalities and the interaction with technology. And the ad itself is pretty self-explanatory. Gaga narrates, she says, "I want to make something new, something unimagined, reach out and touch the world in ways I never could before on a journey to new possibilities. It all starts here on music's biggest stage, and Intel's tech at my fingertips, everything will change." And interestingly enough, once she's in this holographic tech cube, the image that is shown is a rocket leaving the Earth. Now, I can't tell if this is a NASA rocket or one of the newer private company rockets, but it shows her watching this and then tears welling up in her eyes. And then it shows her basically merging with the cube here. So there you have it. Now, I find this interesting with all the stuff we've talked about with the elite wanting to leave the Earth and go to space or whatever. Even if it's not directly about space, I think it clearly shows the elite plan to at least leave this dimension in some fashion. And effectively, it's the occult dream of apotheosis, man becoming God. It's the same exact thing that started in Genesis 3, ye shall be as gods. It's being promoted here. Now, part of this interactive technology thing that I think we're going to see more and more of is in conjunction with the whole transhumanist movement that we've touched on and talked about for many years now at this point. And I want to bring your attention to a film that is coming out called Hardcore Henry. Now, when you watch the previews, this is pretty much a first-person role-playing sort of thing where the camera is basically you're sort of immersed in this virtual reality. And if you watch the beginning here, it shows how Henry's body is being reconstructed by his wife here. And, the whole premise of the film is that, you don't remember your past, but you wake up and all of a sudden you're in this world and you have these, you're basically a robot. You have all these prosthetics and technologies that have recreated your body, and you're not really sure what's going on, but then you're being chased and shot at, and, you're throwing grenades and, all the action stuff that you see in first-person shooter games and stuff like that. So it's a very interactive and immersive cinematic experience here. And I think we're going to start seeing more and more of this type of film. And if you look at the hand here on the right hand of Henry, you have a tattoo of a snake. So there you have it. I think it's a dead giveaway of what's going on here. But this reminds me of a science fiction story that I read about 1.5 years ago called the Atopia Chronicles, written by Matthew Mather. And it was a pretty popular book in terms of science fiction. But if you read the premise of this story, Atopia Chronicles, the synopsis says, in the near future, to escape the crush and clutter of a packed and polluted Earth, the world's elite flock to Atopia, an enormous corporate-owned artificial island in the Pacific Ocean. It is there that Dr. Patricia Killiam rushes to perfect the ultimate in virtual reality, a program to save the ravaged Earth from mankind's insatiable appetite of natural resources. Now, when you read this book, one of the things that's very interesting, almost disturbing, is the infiltration of the virtual world into human lives, especially for these elite groups. And people are linked to computers and virtual realities, and basically their personalities splinter off, and your physical body can be controlled by what they call the proxy. And meanwhile, your conscious mind or whatever, you can go into all sorts of virtual worlds and interact with other people or whatever. And you can actually, again, splinter your personality or your being into several different virtual realities. And some of the things that occur in this is pretty disturbing. For example, there's a wife who has a virtual child because in this environment, they can test out having children in the virtual reality to see if they, want to be parents or not. Well, this mother became attached to these virtual children and hid them from her husband in another virtual reality or whatever. It's very disturbing if you really get into the story. And one of the other things that's really interesting is that Matthew Mather looks at social media and the future potential of it. And one of the characters in the story, who's basically a celebrity, has people following him and basically virtually living vicariously through his eyes when he goes surfing and things like that. Very similar to Hardcore Henry here. Now, this is just a movie, but in essence, what this is leading to is that sort of world where if you want to be Hardcore Henry for a day or whatever, you can be in that virtual environment. Your proxy will take care of your physical body, your physical needs, whatever, in the real world. Meanwhile, your mind, your consciousness or whatever, you can go be Hardcore Henry and live out that experience. And so this sort of dream is part of the elite agenda. And I think what we're seeing here with the Lady Gaga commercial for House of Gaga and the whole Grammy Award thing, it's all being disseminated and pushed out there. The technologies are becoming available to the public, and this sort of science fiction is nothing new, but I think we're, again, seeing it being disseminated into the masses. And I think ultimately, this sort of thing has everything to do with the mark of the beast, the image of the beast, and all the things that we've talked about, considering Bible prophecy. And it's meant to undermine the actual supernatural realities of God. And ultimately, this is Satan's plan to deceive mankind and to get mankind to abandon the image of God that we're created in and to accept becoming the image of the beast. And of course, you can get into all the symbolism with the cube and everything else that Lady Gaga displays here on this preview. And, there's other videos that break down those exact details. I feel like my job here isn't to necessarily do that in this particular video, but to really point out the greater agenda at play here. So as a conclusion to this video, I wanted to read for you the beginning of Jeremiah 8 and tie it into the book of Revelation. Jeremiah 8 verse 1 through 3 says this: "At that time, declares the Lord, the bones of the kings of Judah, the bones of its officials, the bones of the priests, the bones of the prophets, and the bones of the inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be brought out of their tombs, and they shall be spread before the sun and the moon and all the host of heaven, which they have loved and served, which they have gone after, and which they have sought and worshipped, and they shall not be gathered or buried. They shall be as dung on the surface of the ground. Death shall be preferred to life by all the remnant that remains of this evil family in all the places where I have driven them, declares the Lord of hosts." And while this passage is explicitly talking about the judgment of Israel and those who rejected God and sought after pagan worship of the sun, moon, and stars and everything else, I find it interesting that God talks about how their bones will be brought out of their tombs and that they will be spread out before the sun and the moon and the host of heaven, which they loved and served and gone after and sought to worship, and that they won't be gathered or buried, but they shall be as dung on the surface of the ground, and that death shall be preferred to life by all the remnant that remains of this evil family. And this is in direct connection, perhaps, to Revelation 9:6 that we've gone over before. "And in those days, people will seek death and not find it. They will long to die, but death will flee from them." And myself and others have wondered if this prophecy has to do with an end times scenario where man merges with machine and they're basically stuck. Their bodies and bones may be laid out as dung on the surface of the ground, but they seek death because their minds, their souls are trapped in the machine, a ghost in the shell, so to speak. So lots to consider here. It all ties back to the spiritual realities of our world and ultimately the freedom that comes from Jesus Christ and the cross and the ultimate promise through Christ that is described in 1 Corinthians 15, where it says, "Death is swallowed up in victory. O death, where is your victory? O death, where is your sting?" So again, Jesus Christ is the one that defeats death, not mankind, not machine, not technology, not Lady Gaga, not Intel, not transhumanism, not Satan and his Luciferian plans. Hope you have an awesome day. God bless.